What's up, everyone? Welcome back to another review, and this time we're taking a look at Mimic, directed by Guillermo del Toro, based off the Donald A. Wollheim short story of the same name. Mimic tells the story of these two scientists named Susan and Peter who work together to try and find a cure for Stickler disease, which is a disease being spread around all of New York by cockroaches. This disease is very deadly as it is killing off children. So in a way to try and combat this disease, Susan has the idea to do gene splicing of specific roaches. In so doing so, she's able to find a cure. However, something much worse happens as the cure known as the Judas breed, as the subjects known as the Judas breed evolve into humanoid insects that are now going on a killing spree all around New York with the intent to pretty much breed and populate. So yeah, that's the overall story of Mimic. Let's talk about it. Overall, I thought Mimic was pretty decent. I remember watching this movie in 1997 when it first came out. I remember parts of it, not a lot of it. After watching it again, years later, I can honestly say that this is a decent science fiction horror movie. This ain't one of one of Del Toro's best works by a long shot. You can tell that there was a lot of studio interference when it pertains to this movie, but you can also see a lot of Del Toro's hallmarks. Like, this movie has his signature stamps all over it. It's got it's got atmospheric tension. It's got suspense. It has his unique visual style to it. So, like, in terms of that aspect, like, the movie visually looks really good. From a special effects standpoint, a lot of the CG does not hold up. It looks really bad, but the practical effects actually look really decent. And Del Toro did a smart thing by keeping these special effects to a bare bones minimum and only showing them during night sequences where they're going to actually look halfway decent. So it's a mixed bag. The practical effects look really good. The CG, looks, even by then standard, it didn't look all that great. But to Del Toro's credit, he tried to do more practical than CG, and you gotta respect that. Like, Del Toro's always been a type of guy who always went for more practical than CG anyway. He only used CG sequences as a means to an end in order to do things that you just can't do in real life. So I respect and I appreciate that. It looks good. The special effects overall, even the computer ones, they don't look cheesy bad, but you can tell that it was the early stages. But Del Toro made it work to his advantage by keeping them in night sequences, which is what you needed to do. The overall cast in this movie is actually very solid. Mia Sorvino plays Susan, who is the lead character. I thought she was fine in the role. She handled her. She was decent. Jeremy Latham, who plays Peter, the man who she eventually marries, he was also good in the role as well. Like, Susan and Peter, these aren't two characters that are all that memorable, but they're not hateable either. They're a married couple who pretty much have to do certain things in order to save a populace of children for the next generation. But they eventually do that. But in so doing so, they created their own Frankenstein's monster in a way. And now they have to deal with it. More specifically, Susan. As characters, they were fine. There's not really anything memorable about them, but the performances aren't horrible. The standouts to me are really Josh Brolin as a police detective named Josh. I like the sense of humor of the Josh character. He's funny. He's kind of got that snarky sense of humor, but he doesn't come across as detestable or hateable. And he and Peter develop a sort of a partnership in a way, as they're working together to try and figure out what's going on all around New York with some mysterious disappearances and killings. So I like that stuff. You got Charles Dutton, who plays a MTA officer. I always remember Dutton in this movie. I do, and I like Charles Dutton as an actor. I think he's really good. And I also liked him in this movie as well. I thought he was fine. He didn't give a groundbreaking performance, but he didn't give a bad performance either. He does have some decent on-screen chemistry with the three other actors. With Mia Sorvino, Jeremy Latham, and Josh Brolin. I mean, the scenes are short. The scenes aren't like all that spectacular, but I can buy them. I buy them as forming their own little team. And the last piece of the puzzle is Giancarlo Giannini, who plays a character named Manny, who is a shoemaker who gets dragged into this after his the movie doesn't really flat out say it's his son. I'm just gonna say his son Choi, who without the movie actually saying it is autistic, and he's able to imitate and mimic the things that he sees, by having these spoon taps. And when he first sees who he calls Mr. Funny Shoes attack this priest in the alleyway, he's mimicking Mr. Funny Shoes' noises by spoon tapping. That's how he's able. And when Mr. Funny Shoes ends up kidnapping Chewie, the reason why Chewie actually lives is because of the imitation. And of course the whole subplot is Manny trying to find his son, which he eventually does, but he gets killed by Mr. Funny Shoes as a result. So in terms of the casting, it's all well done. In terms of the action sequences, this movie's got some decent directing. Like I said, it's got good directing. Del Toro did a good job at creating a great atmosphere. This movie has the feel of Ridley Scott's Alien. It has a very similar atmosphere similar to that, in which that we don't see the monster all the time, and when we do, he's kept largely in shadow. Like when Mr. Funny Shoes first makes his appearance, he's like in a trench coat and he's stalking this priest, and then he eventually takes him to the sewer. At first, Del Toro is trying to trick us into thinking that it's a slasher movie, but once you get to the midway point, it's revealed that this ain't no slasher movie. This is a mutated bug that is of human size and can mimic humans by acting like human in order to catch the prey. I liked it. I thought that was pretty clever. So I don't really have a whole lot of complaining to that. In terms of how the movie handled its violence on screen, I thought it was handled with taste. I mean, Del Toro pulls no punches. He literally has a scene where these two kids go down train tracks and get slaughtered by Mr. Funny Shoes. So this movie pulls no punches, and I like it. It creates a real threat, because in real life, if kids see a mutated giant bug the size of a human being, you ain't gonna make it out alive. You ain't making it out alive. So I like the real threat behind it. Now, like I said, just because this movie has an intriguing story and an intriguing premise, that doesn't mean the movie itself is all that great, because it's not. In terms of like I said, the performances are good, but they're not like standout. The directing is very similar to that of Alien, and is really the strongest points. I mean, it's not like I said, but at the same time, this ain't Del Toro's best directed movie either. And you can tell that there was a lot of studio interference, but you can also tell that he was able to get some of his artistic vision on screen. But again, this movie also is covered with Del Toro's sensibilities, like these weird, macabre things that he's known for putting on screen and directing. That's what Mimic shows us, and I got no problems with that. The action scenes that are peppered all throughout this film are actually really well handled. They got good tension, they got good suspense, and you have a third act that is actually really a lot of fun and can get nail-biting in a lot of areas, especially when the character of Jeremy, when the character Peter goes into what's basically the nest, and he has to find a way to kill it, to destroy it, so he breaks it down a lot of gas pipes and blows the whole shit up. It's actually a very thrilling, nail-biting climax. And when Charles Dutton's character has to create a diversion. I didn't want to see his character go, but he did it. He sacrificed himself because he knew he was on death's door, because earlier when he got attacked, he got stabbed multiple times by the Judas breed, and he was starting to bleed. So I like how these little things. I like those little things. They're really well handled. Oh yeah. So basically, that's really all I got to say about Mimic. I'm just gonna give this movie a solid 8 out of 10. I actually like this movie. I thought it was really, really good. And if you haven't seen it in a long time, give it a watch. It's really not that bad. It's actually pretty good. So yeah. Those are my thoughts on Mimic. Let me know yours in the comment sections down below. Like the video and subscribe, and I'll check you back next time for more.